Hello, welcome to another episode of our live stream, My Journey to the Trinity. And we are so blessed today to have with us our brother Robert Spencer again. It's been a few months since we've had you on, but thank you for being with us today. God bless you.
Ya Hussein, Alhamdulillah. I
Yeah, boy,
wanted,
yeah.
I wanted you to be the first to know I have embraced Islam.
Oh,
And
well,
now,
I could tell by the beard. Oh,
yes, now
okay. Well,
I'm a Muslim, Alhamdulillah, and I accept Al Islam. I will clear up all of your objections because today is April Fool's Day.
okay.
Okay.
That's an awesome way to start it. And I think that you gave um, some of our audience a heart condition there for a second, but yeah, yeah, kafir. Alhamdulillah, Jesus.
Yes, there you go.
Well, that was a great. How long have you been planning to do that? Was that just?
5 minutes.
Oh, that's a great intro. You know what? We can have so much fun. In fact, even with the idea of the top 10 lies, there's an April Fool's element to it. So,
Yes,
yeah. I bet you other people are now going to take that and use that today. So that's
they can use it all they want.
uh,
It's it. If any, I mean, just imagine seriously if somebody takes that and puts it out there as if it's real. It's just
oh,
pathetic, that they'd have to be really reaching to think that they have something there. But I look forward to seeing it.
yeah, you guys make sure and clip that, put it on TikTok, and let's go viral, you guys. We really
Yes.
wow. Hey, dude, dude, I could talk to the British Immigration Services and say that it was
Yeah.
on my channel that Robert Spencer, said his shahada. You might be able to go back to England. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. They'd make me prime minister.
Or at least assistant mayor of London.
Oh
You
yeah,
know.
with my good
Wow.
friend Sadiq.
God bless you.
Work together.
Yeah, I tell you, well, so much has happened, so much is happening in the world today. And, we got to start with probably the biggest news in America right now. And that is about the movie Snow White, And have you been watching this at all?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not up on Snow White.
Okay. Well, this is hilarious because Disney, of course, is trying to force feed America its woke agenda, and so they had this actress and she Rachel, I think her Rachel Ziegler, which sounds like a Jewish name. I don't understand, but I believe she's Mexican, and so they wanted to have a Snow White who was Latina, and then the queen is a former IDF soldier, and so and so one of them came out and said that she free Palestine. The other ones, supported Israel. And this movie cost $250 million to make, and not including like $200 million in promotion. And it is total flop all around the world. Nobody wants to watch it. And so it has been, people have just been saying, Disney wants to go woke, and they're going desperately broke. And so, and more importantly, they would not hire real dwarfs to be the seven dwarfs. They did it all in CGI, which offended a bunch of employable Hollywood dwarfs who need the work, who says we never get a leading role like this. So anyway, so that's going on in the world right now. So, but but of course there's lots of other stuff, and so I'd really like to get your comments on like First of all, is it this story right here?
Ah, yes, my friends in Australia.
Yes. Um, I'm kind of curious.
My brother and sister in Australia.
By the way, you were on a lot. I got to say something before everything. This is very important. I just want to say that I love to watch Johnny Carson reruns on YouTube. And I heard the other day that you do too. So, you and me may be the two who keep the views going up on the.
Yeah, I gotta. Actually, I don't see him on YouTube. I got a Christmas present of a bunch of DVDs of Carson shows, and so I went through all those recently, and
Oh,
it was very interesting. It's interesting to note how much the culture has changed in 40, 50 years. It's a massive difference. I was
yeah.
amazed. I think what I was talking about, I don't remember what show that was.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
Tell them you aren't here. But
Scam.
I was talking about Tiny Tim's wedding. You remember Tiny Tim, the guy with he had this long hair and he would play a ukulele and sing Tiptoe
Tiptoe.
Tulips in
Yes.
ridiculous falsetto. He was actually from a Lebanese Christian family, but in any case,
Wow.
he got married on the Carson show. And what I was amazed by when I saw that was how Christian the wedding was. And they were just openly talking about the Christian commitment and the praying Christian prayers. And I thought that would never happen. If somebody got married on one of the late night shows today, it would just be a circus. And there would not be any serious prayers of any kind on it.
Wow. Wow. That's the truth. And, like seeing the other day, I know David Wood did something about, we have to, it's like Ramadan. It's a whole month that we got to hear about it, kind of like Gay Pride Month, they get a whole month, and so, but Christmas, you're not allowed to say it anymore, and
Yeah.
you know what they're going to have in public schools? This is my prediction. They're going to have a special prayer room for Muslims.
Oh,
In
I already have some. I've had stories like that at Jihad Watch, where there are several public schools around the country that have set up prayer rooms for the Muslims, or they let the Muslims leave class so that they can go to prayers. And of course, there isn't any comparable accommodation for the Christians because the Christians don't have that kind of specific prayer time. But of course, the Muslims never tell them, well, we can make up the prayers later, really. It's a declaration of their power and hegemony, as it is in every case all the time.
Wow. Yeah, we kicked Jesus out of the public schools, and someone else came in to fill in this spot. Wow,
Yep.
that's so scary, man. Dang. Shoot. Okay. Well, another thing I want to say, you also, I think you were with David Wood and you showed a video of this guy in Australia. I'm not sure if you were on, I think you were. It may have been with the apostate prophet, but there was a guy in Australia who's leader of the pro-Palestinian movement in Australia. And he's saying, Australia will be ours. Sydney is ours. The world is ours. And, it went viral on the internet. Anyway, that's my first cousin. And he's the leader of the Palestinian movement in Australia. His name is Nasser Mashni, and he's very involved in all of that stuff. So if you see my last name there, that is my first cousin. And so
It must be fun at family reunions.
yes. But anyway, about, I guess I'm not really asking about what happened here so much as what you see the trend, but specifically with this type of a situation right here. Now I heard that the girl has been charged,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy I think has mental health issue or something like that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
No, he was charged. They took longer for some reason, maybe because of that. I don't know. I hadn't heard that, but he was ultimately charged as well.
Okay. Now, is he in custody though?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because I heard that she was, I don't know if she's in custody, but what do you think? How do you think I mean, what what is the culture in a hospital to where someone could talk like this? I mean, what does it say about the culture of Australia? And it's not just Australia, but specifically in a hospital that someone could actually talk like this.
You mean that they would just say this so openly that they kill Jewish patients and figure that it's not going to cause them trouble?
Yeah.
I think that it indicates that the situation in Australia must be already very severely advanced to the degree that they didn't realize that they could get in any trouble. Because probably, I mean, the only way that could have happened is that they've seen so many people get away with so much already that it never occurred to them that they could end up having difficulties because of what they were saying. Remember, they were speaking to an Israeli podcaster,
Yes.
and uh, clearly it never occurred to them that they were going to suffer any consequences for doing so. So I think probably they're so used to the Australian authorities appeasing and accommodating Muslims, including jihadis, for so long that they never thought there could be any problem at all.
Wow. Do you see any hope that Australia is going to wake up or
Well, you know, Steve Hussein, I am from South Carolina. I was born in the great state of South Carolina. You ever been there?
I have not. It's one of
Well,
the few states I haven't been to. So,
it's a beautiful place. And in any case, they have a state motto, as all states have state mottos. But I happen to know the state motto for South Carolina, as I'm sure you do as well. And that is Dum Spiro Spero, which is Latin. And when I was a kid, I thought it was funny because Spiro Agnew was the vice president, and it says DUM Spiro, and I thought it was calling the vice president stupid, dumb Spiro, but it's actually Dum, which is while in Latin. While I breathe, I hope. And
okay.
so that was a long way to say there's always hope. There's
There's
no
always,
reason to give up. But
yes.
it could be that Australia is reaching a situation that I think much of Europe is reaching, where it's not the hope is not that they will be able to stave off Islamization and conquest and Islamization. The hope is that after the conquest and Islamization, they will be able to mount a successful resistance.
Wow. Dang. You know, one thing I did not mention, but obviously watching it very closely is the situation in Europe, where almost every day there for a while, almost every day there was some kind of a terrorist attack in Germany, in Austria, in the guy in Sweden who got killed for burning Korans, and you know one thing I found interesting about that is that the Swedish government stopped protecting that guy. I mean, they protected him for a while, but then they stopped protecting him.
They didn't want him there. It was very clear. They were going to deport him back to Iraq, where he would have been certainly killed. He fled to Norway for asylum, and the Norwegians sent him back to Sweden. Nobody in Europe wanted to deal with it, but they got him killed ultimately. If they had made it very clear that they were going to protect him, no matter what, as a matter of standing for the freedom of expression, then he would be alive today.
Hmm. How important, I mean, Europe is different than America, obviously. They don't have the First Amendment like we do, but how important is freedom of expression in Europe?
Several countries, including Sweden, do have the freedom of expression protected in their constitutions. However, there are also several countries that are now amending that, and I believe Sweden is one. That's why Salwan Momika was on trial, because they had changed the laws and reintroduced blasphemy laws that hadn't been seen in Europe for centuries, because they wanted to prosecute people who burned the Quran. Denmark, I believe, has done this, as well as Sweden, that now it's illegal to desecrate a Quran. And of course, they claim that it's just a matter of wanting to protect the people from violent reprisals from jihadis, but it's a definite abandonment of the freedom of expression and the introduction of Sharia blasphemy laws. Because obviously, nobody's going to riot if somebody burns a Bible. Nobody's going to riot a lot of the Muslims because they don't understand how the West works and they hate Jews. They were all saying, how would you feel if we burnt a Talmud? And people were saying, nobody would care, burn away. But it's an expensive thing because it's like 25 volumes and you're going to have to pay a lot of money to get one. But in any case, nobody cares about those things. It's only the Muslims who get so upset. And so it's a dangerous situation for Europe today that they are abandoning the freedom of expression, which is the cornerstone of any free society, and adopting these blasphemy laws. No good end can come from this because now they're in the process of establishing Muslims as a protected class who have rights and privileges above those of the other citizens. And that's only going to be a recipe for disaster.
Wow. And does England already have that?
Essentially, in practice, and there's talk now of actually introducing it officially, and that is by putting in laws that state that if you are a native English white male, then the penalties for various crimes will be greater than if you are a non-Christian, non-white immigrant. Now, it seems astonishing that this could be seriously discussed. But in Britain, it's considered to be a matter of equity, which is a Marxist value, that you introduce not just equality of opportunity, but equality of outcome for all people. And that means that you have to level any perceived inequality. And the perceived inequality in this case is supposedly that minorities have been suffering from racism that has disproportionately targeted them and punishing them for crimes. Well, and the real reason there is that, Islam teaches contempt for the infidel and contempt for the infidel laws. And so more non-British Muslims commit crimes than natives do. It's not that the police are racist or Islamophobic or something like that. But in any case, you have more Muslims in prison than other people. And so to try to introduce equity, the leftist government is actually going to punish British non-Muslims more harshly than Muslims in Britain. And that, of course, is going to establish Muslims as a protected class. If they actually succeed in doing this, then you're going to have people converting to Islam in droves because they will, of course, want to get out from under the unjust legal system and get into the privileged group. And Islam will ultimately become the religion of Britain.
Yeah, boy, yeah. Oh, wow. I'm hoping. Wow, that's a lot. Wow. Shoot. That's a lot to digest there, and it's scary, but you know what? You watch it, and it's like it's happening. It is happening, and
Yep.
Well, another person that I kind of wanted to ask you about is this young man.
Oh, Mahmoud Khalil, my buddy from Columbia University.
Yes.
My brother in Islam. Yes, he I don't know what the situation is with him right now, but he was ordered deported as being a leader of the pro-Hamas protests at Columbia University. And a lot of people, he's become a celebrated case on the left. A lot of people saying you're deporting him for his opinions. It's against the freedom of speech. You are taking this guy and throwing him out of the country just because he has ideas that you don't like. And this has gained a lot of traction, but of course it's totally false. Mahmoud Khalil is in the United States on a green card, and it is a condition of holding a green card that you can be deported if you are a representative of a group that supports terror organizations. And the Columbia University Apartheid Divest Group that Mahmoud Khalil was the spokesman for has been openly saying they want to destroy Western civilization. They are openly in support of Hamas. They put Death to America stickers around the campus. They agitated for Hamas without any apology or dissimulation. And so that's deportable. On the basis of that, he can be sent out of the country. And so it's not in the slightest degree a matter of freedom of speech or him being deported for having unpopular positions. But that is a distortion that the left is employing in order to manipulate people.
Wow. This, he's also, just to show you this, CARE, is obviously is involved here. And, and they are like super concerned about freedom of speech. And now with him, with the green card situation, what is the Bill of Rights relationship to somebody with a green card?
There isn't any. The Bill of Rights is about American citizens. The green card has very specific rules. And as I explained, if you agitate for a terrorist organization, you can be deported. There are very specific, explicit U.S. laws to this effect. I have quoted them in a couple articles about Mahmoud Khalil. It's not hard to find. And they are very clear that if you're a representative of an organization that supports terrorism and supports terror orgs, then you can be deported. Now, Mahmoud Khalil, as a result of that, has been mounting a defense that has several parts. One is to claim that he was not really a representative of Columbia University Apartheid Divest, and yet he's named as a leader of that group in numerous news reports. He is the chief negotiator that group used to speak to Columbia University administrators about their demands. And so he's asking us to believe now that Columbia University Apartheid Divest chose a guy who was not a member of their org to be their chief negotiator with the Columbia administration. That seems very unlikely to me. And he also has said that that group is not in support of Hamas. But that seems abundantly clear from numerous pro-Hamas statements that the group made over the last few months while he was in the leadership of it.
Wow. Yeah, that's that's the kind of the one that they've been talking so much about. And look, and this is what CARE says. Look, this is not just about one student, it's about all of us.
I would agree with them on that, but not in the way they think.
Yes.
About all of us, but not that our freedom of speech is in jeopardy or something like that, that they're lying to people about. It's about all of us in the sense, are we going to tolerate agitation and activism on behalf of a group that has been declared a terror group by the State Department, a group that celebrates and perpetrates the murders of innocent civilians in pursuit of its ends? Are we really on board with that? Or are we going to stand up and say, no, we invite you into this country to get an education. You can get an education, but you're not going to be agitating for these jihad terror groups.
One thing that I kind of see with the situation right now is that I know they were talking a lot about after the election about the 2080 situation in America right now. That the reason the Democrats lost is because they always they stood on the 20 and ignored the 80, whereas America was with the 80, and that the majority of people support what Trump is doing with these guys. But, of course, the media is with the 20, and so, that's kind of the silver lining is that I see that the people are saying, we don't want these people here, America's obviously a free country. People do have the right to their own opinion, but they don't have the right to do this, and so then, and I gotta be honest, this next one scares me just a little bit. I'll be honest with you. And that's this lady.
Okay, you got to fill me in on her.
Okay, this is the lady. I'm sure you saw the video. Her name is Oz Turk. She's Turkish,
Hmm.
and she's a student from T- Tufts University,
Mhm.
and she's the doctorate. And she also wrote this pro-Palestine thing and a column and everything. And she's not even a green card holder. She's more student visa. And there was a video of some ICE agents surrounding her.
Oh, yeah, I saw the video. Yeah, I didn't realize that was her. Gotcha.
Yeah. Um, you know what scares me is that video. You know that it's being used, saying, "Look what," because she's wearing a hijab. You got all these ICE agents, American, uh, uh, holding her, touching her. She's screaming, and this is, you know, this worries me. You know, the way that video is out there, the way it's being used, and what this could lead to, in terms of, Muslims saying, look what they're doing to Muslims, that this is an anti-Muslim thing.
Well, of course, that's how they always play it, that everything is Islamophobic, everything's a war on Islam. That's designed to rile up Muslims and make them think that they have to wage jihad in response. Because, of course, as you know, in Islamic theology, if a Muslim land is attacked, then the whole Muslim community has to wage jihad in response. And so it's the same kind of thing on a smaller scale. If a Muslim individual is attacked, it also calls upon Muslims, enjoins upon them a certain solidarity that they should act against the unbelievers. So that's one thing. It's kind of a recruitment tool for jihadis. But also, they know that victimhood is very much prized on the left, and that
Mhm.
if they can portray this Ozturk as a victim and claim that the Trump administration is racist and hates Muslims and it's Islamophobic and so on, then they can get a lot of non-Muslim leftists on board against these kinds of operations to deport people who are in support of terror groups. I saw the video. Maybe I didn't see all of it or something, but I didn't see anything so terrible in terms of the behavior, excuse me, of the agents. If I missed something, let me know. But it seems to me that if somebody starts yelling and screaming, well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything happened.
Mhm.
I didn't see any incorrect behavior or brutality or violence on the part of the agents at all. And so, like I say, maybe I didn't see the whole thing. Maybe there's more of it than that I missed or something. I don't know. But it seems to me there's really nothing there, as
Mhm.
far as I could see, that it was a mountain out of a molehill, as is so often the case with the left. They're trying to portray these ICE agents as if they were dangerous thugs and some kind of American Gestapo uh,
Yes.
beating up innocent people, but it ain't happening. It's
Yeah.
just
Well,
area.
this is why, I guess, because I've kind of been on the, I've been in the company of people who, and I saw, for instance, like uh, there was a thing of like around 2000. I used to live in Gaza, and one thing that George Bush said is we have to continue our crusade against the the terrorists and all this stuff.
The
Well,
evildoers.
that word
He
crusade,
liked to call them evildoers. George W. Bush. We have to continue our crusade against the evildoers.
yeah. Well, that word crusade was taken by Al Jazeera,
Mhm.
by every single newspaper in the Middle East, to say this is a Christian crusade against Islam.
Yeah, and George W. Bush was probably the most surprised person of all when he saw how that was done, because he was using the word the way it's used in modern America today, as
Mhm.
in a fight for a righteous cause. A crusade is used in all kinds of contexts. And the word doesn't have any Christian connotation, any military connotation necessarily. He just meant we're going to keep fighting against these bad guys. And
Yes.
for that to have become this huge flashpoint, he had no idea that the Crusades were still such a live issue among Muslims. and how much they would try to manipulate the public discourse by stoking hysteria in that regard as well. That, oh, look, he's a crusader and he's going to come and
Yes.
try to take away your Islam. And all these, it was completely baseless and ridiculous, but it played well in the Islamic world, which is why Al Jazeera did it.
Yeah, and I talked to people. I was there, and I was telling them crusade does not mean that.
Mhm.
And there's nothing you can say. Once they made up their mind, that's what it means. That's it. That
Yep.
they're stuck on that. That means crusade. It's a Christian Muslim war, you know. And with this video, I I I've been inside and I know the mentality. They're going to take this video and say this is the new anti-Islam persecution in America. And for men, and I agree with you. I watched it many times, and the guys are surrounding. I mean, it wasn't anything, and she's walking away.
They weren't going to let her get away.
Yes,
Sure. Yeah. They were arresting her. Yeah. But unless it's wrong to arrest anybody under any circumstances, they didn't do anything wrong.
yes, yeah, and the video's there, but I know how it's. I've already seen some videos about look the new America, or
I mean,
So anyway,
I've never told this story in public before, I don't think, but in 1992, I was standing out in front of the Democratic National Convention in New York City, and I got to talking to these people who were selling T-shirts, and I ended up getting arrested by police who assumed that I was one of the group who was selling these T-shirts, and they didn't have a permit or whatever, and it was a big mess, and had to go to court and fight it for months, and anyway, a lot of trouble. But the point being that when I was arrested, the cop took hold of my arm, and he wasn't squeezing it or breaking it or anything, but it was very clear he wasn't letting go, and I wasn't going anywhere except where he wanted me to go, and that's how arrests work.
yeah, that's right.
It's nothing to get upset about.
Yeah, yeah, but it's going to be interesting to watch this one. But we also have this one, and I don't know. Have you watched this?
Yeah, that's the Brown University professor. Yes, and she went to Hassan Nasrallah's funeral
Yes.
in Beirut, and she came back, and they arrested her because she was obviously in support of Hezbollah. And as I explained in regard to Mahmoud Khalil, you can't be a supporter of a terrorist organization and stay in the U.S. on a green card. And so she also was deported. And she told the immigration officials when she was arrested that she was only a supporter of Nasrallah and Hezbollah on a religious level,
Yes.
not politically. And I thought that's very clever because in America, among Christians in particular, there's a sacred secular distinction, and render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and to God that which is God's, and all sorts of studies about that, and all sorts of conversation about that. And people take the distinction for granted, but it does not exist in Islam. And so for her to say, I support Hezbollah religiously but not politically, is completely incoherent from the standpoint of Hezbollah itself or of anybody in Lebanon. And they would know that she was lying and that she was being intentionally misleading to the officials, but the officials probably didn't know. Nonetheless, they still didn't let her go, which is to their credit.
Well, I was actually going to ask you specifically about that because I remember her saying, I support them religiously, not politically. Well, you know what? I could just see that entering into the public discourse in America among the left, that you actually can do that. You can support something religiously because there's freedom of religion, but not politically.
Oh,
And
sure. I expect they'll run with it as far as they can in America. But that
Mhm.
still doesn't mean that it's a legitimate distinction in Islam or that she was being honest when she said it.
Mhm.
Because the religious and the political are all intertwined. I mean, obviously, I don't have to tell you this, but just in case anybody's watching and is confused on this issue, in Islam, the religious is political and the political is religious.
Mm-hmm.
And Allah blesses you in this world and in the next if you obey him. That's all over the Quran. And so if you are blessed in this world and punished in this world if you disobey Allah, then obviously your condition in this world has to do with your religious state. And that inevitably leads to the idea that the political sphere is one in which the religion is going to play out. And so also, of course, Allah mandates that the Muslims wage war against unbelievers, which of necessity means that they have to get involved politically in various countries to try to subvert the existing order, destroy it, and replace it with an Islamic one. And so there's no religious political distinction in Islam.
Mm-hmm. That's right. But I'm just waiting to start seeing this on CNN, where they're going to have their panels saying, "Oh, it's absolutely, yes, absolutely. What she's saying is right. It's absolutely, the freedom of religion in America. We are founded, and I want my Christian brothers and sisters to have their freedom to go to church when they want to. That's how they're going to argue it. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I tell you, I see the seed beds for some crazy things in what's happening right now, and this has just begun. We got 4 of these people so far that they are arresting them and deporting them like Trump said he was going to do. But they, Rubio says they got like 300 that they've already done, that they've cut off their visas and stuff like that. And I'm just interested to see, interested to see what's going to happen when they start. I mean, these numbers start going up. I mean, they're already holding protests to free Mahmoud Khalil. How many more are there? So anyway.
Oh yeah, well, obviously the left is going to do all it can to impede this and keep it from happening, and they're going to fight everyone tooth and nail down to the end. There's no doubt about that. But the Trump administration, all they can do is keep at it and try to rid America of these people. And as you noted earlier, the American people are behind it.
They're behind
these people endorsing terrorism in the country. And if they are not American citizens, then bye-bye.
Yeah. And the other side of it has been the trend that are, those gangs from South America, that the judges are trying to, protect and bring back to America.
Yeah.
America
Criminal gang members.
Yeah. No. We don't want them. And
I think they should stay in the judge's house. If he brings them back, he should be willing to put them up.
Yeah, exactly. And that this is the one thing right now. I really feel like Trump has the wind to his back on this, because the left keeps, standing on these positions that America's saying, no, thank you. We don't want it. We're sick and tired of this, and so anyway, all right, you guys. Well, I know that those of you who came, it's because you wanted to hear what the 10 biggest lies in the universe are. And we do have, I think we already had the number 10 with our brother Shahada, but no. But I'm going to go ahead and go through what we kind of worked together a little bit on this about what the top 10 lies in the world are today in honor of April Fool's Day. Okay, number 1, Islam is no more likely to incite violence than Christianity.
Yep, this is people assume this all over the place. It's very common that every religion has its extremists, And so you mentioned Al Qaeda and ISIS. They'll say, well, but what about Westboro Baptist Church? Well, what about Westboro Baptist Church? In the first place, I haven't seen them in a few years. I think they're folded. But a few years ago, you would see them carrying signs saying God hates fags and things like that. And they didn't do any violence. So it wasn't really a good analogy with the jihad terrorists. And you look at search today online for the top 10 terrorist groups in the world, they're all Islamic groups. And there are no Christian terrorist groups. So obviously the theologies of the two religions are different. People used to say a lot that, well, Christianity is 600 years older than Islam. So in 600 years, Islam will be like Christianity is today. But that also assumes that they are exactly the same thing and just at different stages of development. When actually you read the Bible and read the Quran, the teachings are so different that they will never travel the same trajectory. And so, as you know, the ignorance is very thick about all these issues today, but there's no basis for thinking that at all.
Wow. And you kind of brought one up that I would like to ask you about, and this is something that isn't really involved with Islam, but it is a little bit, and that is words are violence.
Yeah, I was speaking the other night in Los Angeles, and this girl from UCLA asked a question saying, people are getting their hijabs ripped off, which I actually don't believe is really happening at UCLA, but she claimed it, that Muslim girls are getting are getting attacked by evil Islamophobes and who are tearing off their hijabs. And she implied that it was my fault for criticizing Islam. And so I had to tell her and tell the audience that speech is not violence, and that I've never called for violence, condoned violence, advocated violence, approved of violence. And so all I have done is criticize things that are readily demonstrable to be part of Islam. And the one of the big crimes of education today is to confuse people like her and make them think that if you speak critically of something, you're calling for violence against the people who may hold to it, which is not the case at all. And violence is when you call for violence. Mm-hmm. Criticism of something is not violence. As anybody could tell, she would go away and criticize Trump or whoever, I'm sure, and have no trouble and never think she was inciting violence. This kind of argument is only used against those who criticize something like jihad terrorism. But nonetheless, it comes from a deliberate confusion of speech with violence that comes out of the universities.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that you have people on the left who are saying we need to go knock out Elon Musk, we need to punch him, and that's not considered violent, know.
That's actually incitement. That's real incitement to violence, not something that's critical of something.
Yeah. Well, there's that guy too who on CNN who said Elon Musk is a Nazi. And Elon Musk just told them immediately, says, okay, you're being sued for defamation. I just filed the lawsuit, instantly. And so, but, they get away with so much, man. And the media just sits there and doesn't say nothing. It makes you think there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't understand, The
media is the propaganda arm for the left. It's not really an objective news source at all. So, of course, they're going to sit there and do nothing when people are calling for violence against those they hate.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. Lie number, which I kind of think that we talked about this, some of these I think we've talked about a little bit already, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway. Attending a Hassan Nasrallah funeral does not mean that somebody supports Hezbollah. So.
Well, if you're there because you want to see who's there, or you're a reporter, or you're an opponent of Nasrallah, and you are happy that he's dead, then that might be true. But in the case of the doctor we discussed, it's really open and shut. She had all sorts of pro-Hezbollah material on her, and that's another reason why she was deported. It was very clear she was a supporter of Hezbollah.
Mm-hmm. Um, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I don't know if you can tell us a little bit about, in terms of the court cases, because there's all these court cases, their lawyers are filing lawsuits and stuff, these people who've been deported who only have a student visa and stuff. I mean, is there, with just a student visa, for instance, is there some grounds for her to be brought back to the US with a lawsuit if all she had was a student visa?
I don't think so. I'm no lawyer, so I can't give a definitive answer, but it seems to me open and shut, like I explained with Mahmoud Khalil. You cannot advocate for a terror group
Mhm.
on a student visa. And I don't think that she has a case because of her support for Hezbollah that went to such an extent that she actually traveled to Lebanon for Nasrallah's funeral. Um, I mean, maybe she's got this battery of lawyers. Maybe they'll think of something clever to circumvent all that. But I think if it's just judged on the basis of the obvious conclusions that can be drawn from the statute, she's got no case.
Okay. Now, and another question, just going one level deeper into this. What if an American citizen did that? Came out in support of, say, Hezbollah or Hamas.
Well, those are designated terrorist organizations. So at very least, I would hope they would be put under investigation. But I don't think it's illegal to advocate for Hamas or Hezbollah in the United States. And so if she were a citizen, that would be a very different situation.
Okay. All right. Number 3, Islamophobia is the real problem, not Islamic Jihad.
Yeah, whenever I speak at a university, I get that I'm Jack the Ripper. I'm this evil person, but they don't show any concern about jihad terrorists, and that's just a result of the terrible education that they've gotten at America's universities today, which have no problem excusing or ignoring jihad terrorists and acting as if Islamophobia were some massive problem. Now, obviously, another thing they do is confuse the issue about what Islamophobia actually is. If it's referring to attacking innocent Muslims, then there's no justification for that in any case. But if they're talking about honest analysis of the motives and goals of jihad terrorists, that's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they put them together intentionally so that you'll think that they're talking about attacks on innocent people, and that's what the alleged Islamophobes are condoning, which of course is not the case.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, few people have taken it on the chin quite as much as you have about this topic, and and so I guess I just want to ask you, why do you keep doing this?
Well, you got to be crazy, I guess, but I believe in what I'm doing. I think that this is a genuine threat that insufficient attention is being paid to, and so it's worth making a stand over. That's basically it, really.
Okay. All right. Well, the next lie that's out there is that Israeli patients are safe in Australia.
Yeah. Well, when you have the doctor and the nurse on the video openly saying that they kill Jewish patients and will do it again, then how can any Jewish patient in Australia go to any Muslim doctor and think I'm in good hands? Now, that's not to say that every Muslim doctor is going to be doing this, but how is any Jewish patient going to know which one is going to do it and which one isn't?
You see, that's what I was thinking too, is like, how can because there is, I mean, just the boldness with which these guys spoke. The one guy said, and then the girl says, I won't treat them. I'll kill them. I mean, she said that.
Mhm.
And, I went to journalism school. I was a journalist, to where I kind of learned a little bit about speech. slander, about defamation, stuff like that, to where I kind of understand that you got to be a little bit careful with what you say. You can't just say everything that comes to your mind, you know. But I don't think you need to have a degree in journalism to know that stuff like that is, you can't talk like that. But the
Well,
fact,
clearly they thought they could talk like that with impunity. It must be that bad in Australia. And that's really what's disturbing about it.
yeah, with all of the anti-Semitism that they're having in Australia right now, um, you know, Robert, you need to. This is from Too Many Marys. You need to play identity politics more by mentioning your Armenian grandparents who barely avoided the genocide. Armenians count as brown enough to get credit. Laugh out loud.
Yeah, they were Greeks. I don't know if they'll count for you, but in any case, yes, they were exiled from the Ottoman Empire for refusing to convert to Islam, and my great grandfather was killed on the way out, but the rest of the family was able to get out.
Oh Jesus! Wow. But by the way, Too Many Marys. My wife is Armenian, and so so I am connected to that side of it, and the reality, that yeah, it's like just the way, dude. There's just so many different factors of that, and so okay, the next lie. The world is made up of oppressors and oppressed.
That's Marxism. That's the Marxist idea that, Solzhenitsyn, the great Russian Orthodox Christian writer, said the dividing line between good and evil runs through down every human heart. That is, every human being can be good, can be evil. And this is something that is very easy for human beings to forget. And many human beings forget it all the time. And they think the dividing line between good and evil runs between one group and another. And
Yes.
that's really what's behind the Marxist idea of the oppressor and the oppressed. That instead of dividing the world by religion or by race or other popular ways that it's divided, they divide it on the basis of the oppressor and the oppressed, and then they see everything in that way. And so they consider that Israel is the oppressor and the Palestinians are the oppressed. That's a lot of hooey, but that's the way they see the world, and why the left has been so eager to get involved with the Palestinian jihad.
Yeah, and the I really, it just made me think right there just for a second about the Christian ethos. I'm not sure if that's the right word. I just want to sound smart by saying it, but that we are all sinners. Every one of us is a sinner, has fallen short of the glory of God, and that there's no Greek, Jew, slave, free. We're all hopelessly corrupt in God's eyes, and that it's not just about this group of people is like this and this group of people is like that. No, it's we're all the mess that Jesus came and died for. And but yeah, this getting people to see, once they've embraced that oppressor oppressed. And I remember once I was watching, I'm sorry to say this, please forgive me, please forgive me, but I was watching the Rosie O'Donnell show. Shoot, I really feel like I need to confess. No, no, but she said, I always stand with the underdog. And I think, you know what? I'm not sure that's right. The
Mhm.
underdog isn't always right.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a reason they're an underdog, and so Um, all right. Let's see. The next one is, because there are Jews at these protests means they are not anti-Semitic.
Yeah, there are leftist Jews who are out there protesting against Israel and in favor of the Palestinian jihad. Um, but that doesn't mean that the protests are not anti-Jewish or not anti-Semitic, because what the leftist protesters don't realize is that if the Palestinian jihadis get their way, there are 7 million Jews in Israel, they'll be murdered. That's what from the river to the sea means. They'll be driven into the sea. The idea that there will be some peaceful resolution to this if the Palestinian jihadis get the upper hand is completely naive. And so, yeah, there are leftist Jews who are protesting against Israel, and they are like Jews in the 40s joining the Nazi party. I don't know if there were any, but that would be akin to what we're seeing in that.
Wow, I bet there. I think I've heard that there were some that collaborated.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, George Soros, of course, is a famous example of a Jewish guy. He was a kid during World War II, and he's confessed. You can see it on YouTube to aiding the Nazis and confiscating the property of Jews and others in Germany. So there you go.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to say something that's going to get me banned from YouTube probably, but um, they, they ask most people. They ask most people when they go to those protests. They ask which river and which sea,
Yes.
and they go, it's in the Mississippi River. You know, it's like the Nile. No, no, but but I just want to say that if you read Genesis, where God was talking to Abraham, uh, even those who get it right are actually wrong. It's not the river they think; it's the Euphrates River
Hmm.
to the. So anyway, I said it. Okay, don't say nothing about me. All right, but I want to also. This is another lie that you're here to help us. That an Al Qaeda leader can become a Democratic president in a three-piece suit.
I guess that's a reference to Abu Muhammad al Jalani, or Ahmad al Shara, as he calls himself now. He is the president of Syria, and he, in case anybody might not know, he was the leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is a jihad group connected to Al Qaeda, dedicated to establishing Sharia in Syria. After he took control, he took off his fatigues that he'd been wearing for years, put on a suit and a tie, and told the world that he was moderate. And the crazy thing is, people believed him. And the European Union immediately gave him $254 million. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it's nice work if you can get it. But it just shows what idiots these people are, that they think that he had changed his entire approach and outlook based on the fact that he currently is wearing a suit. It's kind of embarrassing, really, for them. But in any case, he's made it clear in the time since he's taken power that he's just another jihadi. He wants to establish Sharia in Syria and is working on doing that.
This one really depressed me because I have friends that that are very close to what's going on there. And one of the things that I heard, that this is like from the first week of his administration in Syria, was that when you come to a government building, you don't say good morning anymore. You say salam alaikum.
Yep, I'm not surprised.
It's like you have to start saying the Islamic.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you, I wonder if this guy has the ability, or if he's the new principal, like what Khomeini did, to the Muslim world.
Mm-hmm.
Because Khomeini, he's the one that started the Islamic Revolution that spread across the whole Shiite Sunni world. It wasn't limited to Iran. And I wonder if this guy has the ability to to start something like this. And it's so shoot. Okay, all right. Okay, the new lie. We only got a few more, brother. I don't want to keep you too long here. The protests on campuses were peaceful, and no one should be deported.
Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, if you look at the video from Columbia University, you see them breaking down the glass on the doors of a building that was padlocked and unlocking the door from the inside after they'd broken through the glass and then occupying the building. They put up violent resistance when the police came and had to be forcibly ejected from the building. This is all on video. It's not really a matter of dispute. And so it's just that the jihadis and their leftist allies, as is so often the case, they depend upon the ignorance of the people to make their arguments. And that's a prime example of that.
You know what I'm thinking when you're saying that is that we've got the video, like they have the video of what happened on October 7th. And people don't believe their eyes anymore either. You know,
Yep.
we've reached a point where people don't believe their eyes anymore, you know, and wow. Okay, another number two lie, and because this is number two, I'm going to have another two afterward. But number two lie is that American universities are safe for Jewish students.
They're increasingly dangerous for Jewish students. And this is the reason why the Trump administration recently cut $400 million in government funding from Columbia. They should cut all the rest. They actually got couple billion, I believe it is, from the government, which is just outrageous. But in any case, all of that should be removed, and federal funding should be removed from all the universities where Jews are actively being menaced, Jewish and pro-Israel students. But that's increasingly common because the Marxists and the jihadis both, of course, they sanctify violence. They think violence is justified. They don't really have any incentive not to be violent if the administration is on their side. And so this is a situation that people need to be aware of and has to be addressed regarding American universities.
Wow. You know, there was a column in the New York Post where, you know, it looks like the university are so hopelessly leftist that they've gone off the cliff. But actually, President Trump did discover the secret button, and that secret button is money. Money talks, and it talks at the university level too. And so that they brought about the change by pulling the money. And I read today that they are looking at Harvard next. They're looking at their funding.
Good.
But what's interesting to me is so much billions coming from Qatar, and the government knows about this, and it's like are we just winking at all this money coming from Qatar to the universities?
Yeah, it's crazy because Qatar is a ally of the United States, ostensibly, even though it's a leading sponsor of the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood is actively subversive. And according to a captured internal document, is working in the United States at eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within. Nonetheless, they're our friend and ally. And so nobody's particularly concerned about the money they're pouring into universities. But they've totally corrupted the universities and made them pro-jihad and deeply anti-Semitic.
Okay. All right. Well, the number 1A lie that is in the universe, unfortunately, it's in a big part of the universe, is they did not kill him or crucify him.
That's a good one because, of course, there's abundant evidence that they did. There's 600 years of testimony from various people on all sides of the issue before you get the advent of Islam. More than 600, actually. And everybody took for granted that Jesus was crucified. Nobody was questioning that. Nobody was saying that he wasn't really crucified, except for, notably, one group, and that's the Gnostic heretics, who have gospels that I actually first studied when I was first studying Islam in graduate school, and wrote my first paper about Islam. It was about this back in the 80s. It was about the second treatise of the great Seth, which has Judas Thomas, which is what they call Thomas the Apostle. And they say he was the twin of Jesus on the cross in place of Jesus because he could not be crucified because they believed that matter, the physical world, was evil in itself. And so Jesus was just a phantasm. He didn't really have a body, and thus he couldn't be crucified. And so Thomas, the twin, was crucified in his place. And then Islamic tradition picks that up, puts it in the Quran, and then there are hadiths in which it says Judas Iscariot was the one who was made to look like Jesus and made to be crucified. And that's because of a confusion as to which Judas was meant in the Gnostic Gospels. They didn't realize when they were saying Judas that they were talking about Thomas. But it's very clear from the Gnostic texts themselves. It's just another thing that the Muslims got wrong about Christianity. So this idea now circulates among Muslims, and of course it's rooted in the Quran, that Jesus was not really crucified, and they present it as the correction of the Christian understanding. But this is a ridiculous correction that has no attestation historically whatsoever. You go back to the earliest records, and people were saying that he was crucified, and the dispute was over whether he rose from the dead and was the Messiah. Nobody was arguing about whether he was crucified or not. Everybody acknowledged that.
Wow. Thank you. That was worth the price of admission, you guys. And the number one lie in the universe, there was a man named Muhammad.
Yeah, I got a couple books about that. Did Muhammad exist? And Muhammad, a critical biography. And the problem exists for anybody who thinks that he was real. And that's this, that all the things that we think we know about him, everything that the Muslims believe about him, it all comes from 9th century material. And so you want us to believe that for 200 years, this material was passed on orally without being written down. Okay. And memorized faithfully and not changed. Okay, sure. In those days, people had magnificent memories, better than today, because they worked at it, and they could memorize huge expanses of material like that. Okay, great. Big problem with that, though, is that nobody ever gives any hint that any of this material exists in the 7th century. Not only is Muhammad only mentioned a few times and never in any way resembling the Prophet of Islam, but also there are numerous records about the Arab conquests where nobody gives a hint that they got a new religion, a new prophet, or a new holy book. And even as Islam starts to arise, you never have people saying, and as Muhammad said. And usually if you have some massive corpus of oral tradition, you have that. Like, for example, in the Acts of the Apostles, when Paul says, as our Lord Jesus says, it is better to give than to receive. It's not in the Gospels. It was oral tradition. And he knew that his hearers knew it, and he knew it, and he recited it. But nobody ever makes any reference. Not only do they never quote Muhammad in the 7th century, but they never even give any hint that there was a Muhammad to be quoted. And so I got to wonder, you got talking about these people walking around with all this stuff in their heads, this massive expanse of material about Muhammad, and they never, ever spill the beans and give a hint that any of it exists. It doesn't fly as far as I'm concerned.
That was worth the price of admission too. Thank you. and I guess as a final thing here, could you just tell us about your new book?
Yeah, Anti-Semitism, History and Myth, is about the explosion of anti-Semitism we've seen since October 7th, where anti-Semitism comes from, and a refutation of some of the common anti-Semitic charges. It's all in the book, Anti-Semitism, History and Myth, available now.
Wow, thank you. And wow, thank you so much. We covered probably a lot of stuff that's going on, and I appreciate you coming on and helping us wade through all of this. And I always watch, for those of you who haven't watched, gone to jihadwatch.org, has some of the most current you almost daily. Do you almost daily
Not
update?
almost, daily.
Daily, they have information, and today there is some devastating stuff about what the Palestinian top official, I mean, probably number 2 guy or something, said about October 7th. And also what Turkey's president, NATO member, said about Israel. So things are anyway, go to jihadwatch.org. And brother, thank you so much for coming on again. It was always a blessing to have you. And thank you to everybody who is with us. Anything you'd like to say at the end here, brother?
No, I thank you. I think we covered a lot of stuff here. So thank you very much. It's always good talking to you, and God bless you.
God bless you. And if you get to Australia, say hi to my cousin. And so
yeah, we'll have lunch.
He's a great, it's wonderful. I love him, but he's got this thing. So, all right. God bless you. Have a wonderful day, and God bless all of you guys, and have a wonderful day. And I hope to be on later on tonight as well. All right.
If you have ever wondered why dull apologists lie so much, it's because on a rare occasion that they tell the truth, this happens.
One of the reasons I accepted Islam was the scientific miracles. I'll be honest with you. And now we know that this whole scientific miracles was absolute nonsense.
You're going to have to repeat that.
That the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say.